I thank you. Like my predecessors, I'm going to start by congratulating Tony and to say, really, it's an honor to be in such esteemed company. And, you know, you see these times when the right people get rewarded for the right things, and sometimes, especially today, that is really a great thing to see. So congratulations to you. I also want to thank the team. This, as a speaker, this has just been seamless. This has just been incredibly well organized, well attended, and it's really a pleasure to be here. For those, I guess this is what I'm going to use here, right? I'm fast on this, right? For those of you who don't know BioCentury, we have been going for 30 years. The founders, who are the CEO and chairman now, they started BioCentury when biotech was virtually in its very, very early days, and they grew up with it, as did BioCentury. So we have been, in all that time, commentating, to your point, always looking to the future. And actually, a lot of times, and I can say it because it was them, a lot of times they were right, right? And so you build a platform of that. So we write about the industry from discovery, from idea, all the way to the patient. We get into the science, have a team of PhD scientists, I am myself one, but we write about what you're doing, and then we take a meta view, which is what I'm going to do here as well, and we write about it, we write about the funding of it, we write about the deals behind it, we write about the clinical trial strategies, we write about regulatory policy and how that is changing, and all of these are things that you need to know about, and then we even write about policy things which are global, but I mean, especially hitting in the US, things like the Inflation Reduction Act might change the way a pharma will look at a small molecule opportunity, for example. As a shameless plug, I'm going to say that we this year are launching a new we also do conferences and have a very good database, which Kathy can talk up. It's got drugs and various things. I'm going to stop the sell in a minute. And just to let you know that we have a conference launching this year, which is at the academia industry interface. And that is, I know, what the Milner Institute aims to cover. I think that this is, and I'll talk about that in a minute, I think it is one of the interfaces that is it still has a lot of work to be done. I think it is actually the foundation of the industry, of most of the industry, of most of the innovation that is happening. People talk a lot about the valley of death in drug development, but there's also sort of issues around how these players come together, and a lot of it is really very fruitful. But the main thing is to put people in the room together, and so that it's not all out of two corners, Boston and San Francisco. And so we really want to encourage people from the UK and from Ohio and corners of the United States that the VCs aren't walking up and down the corridors of, and bring them together, and it's an opportunity for you to meet VCs and farmers and showcase your science and have in-depth conversations, and you can talk to me afterwards about that. The work, I have a team of really great people. We cover all of those things. These three individuals really helped with this particular, the data behind this particular presentation. And one of them, Danielle Golovin, had actually published a piece on the Series A before. Lauren Martz is the brains behind everything, frankly. If you ever see her name in print, just read what she's writing. And Meredith does, you know, a tremendous amount with data. So what I want to do is to give a couple of slides, one to set the stage and the other as a sort of overview. And for me, this interplay between academia and industry, which is the very, very upstream part of drug development, this is foundational to the fabric of biotech. It has been from the very beginning of biotech, which you can call hybrid tech, you can call Genentech. Most people would put it as there, sort of coming out of those labs. And it continues to be that. Who guides whom? This is an interesting question. People tell us we speak to everybody. It's true. We speak to farmers, we speak to investors, we speak to innovators, we speak to early stage companies and late stage companies and everybody. The investors and the farmers, they come to us, they want to know what's the next big thing. They all want to know it first before their competitors. Academics come to us, people like you, and say, where are VCs investing? What are farmers involved? You know, there is this circle. Each one wants to know. But at the same time, and this is extremely important, there are some lines in the sand. I've written here that academia must continue to explore disease biology regardless of the waxing and waning of industry interest. And I'll give you 2 or 3 points to think about, which will come up in some of the data. Industry left neuro. Industry abandoned neuro. The big farmers pulled out. That meant the investors pulled out. The same happened in obesity. But in neuro, which people are coming back to now, academics carried on in their labs. They didn't say there's no industry there. They carried on exploring disease biology, coming up with new targets, thinking about the diseases themselves. And that is essential, because if academia is only going where industry says it wants to go, then it falls apart. At the same time, industry sets the standards of evidence. If academia says, we know this, industry knows better than anybody what constitutes validated. So I see in people's slides it's preclinically validated. We talk about this a lot. What is validated? At the end of the day, FDA says, or EMA or MHRA says what's validated. But the people who are going to get it over the finish line, the people who are going to fund that, they have to look at the data and they have to say, that's validated. That level of evidence gives me enough to invest in or to partner or to whatever. And so there is a coming together that, each one brings its own expertise to the table. And the hybrid of that, as we've seen, let's say, through Steve's many companies, is incredibly fruitful. And I'll show you how fruitful in just a minute. But before that, I want to just talk about the take-homes. 3 take-homes. You can fall asleep for the rest if you want, okay? But I wouldn't. Bridging to industry. Okay, the funding environment is incredibly difficult right now. If I gave this talk 4 years ago, that would not have been the case. It is. Farmers are incredibly active in early stage deals. Deals are an alternative to VC money. But actually, you all want to know what the farmer's doing. They don't tell us. They don't disclose what they're doing with academics. Biotech deals, which is different from pharma deals, are really important. And that's something that I would encourage everybody to think about. And that's some data I'm going to show you. In terms of trends, I talked about the trends. How VCs invest and where biotechs go and farmers go, they're connected, but they can be a lagging indicator. So for example, if, you'll see this, you'll see the farmers, let's say, pull out of neuro first, the VCs will follow. There might be other things that the VCs get into first, they find a new target, the farmers follow. So you have to, if you care about trends, which we care about, you have to look at them in context. And the last thing is what you do, the value that academia provides. And I've broken this down a little bit in this talk. It's not just coming up with an asset or a technology. It's ways of solving problems. Some of these are long-standing problems. How to make an oral peptide, an orally available peptide or protein or something like that. And some of them are new problems that address, create new opportunities. I would say that in the last, from yesterday to today, the word I'm hearing the most, which is different than would have been 10 years ago, is unbiased. You're all looking at unbiased screens. There's nothing wrong with biased screens in terms of the amount of drugs that have come out from shining the light in a particular place, but unbiased screens, which technology allows you to do today, open up a completely different world. Okay, what did I say? So this is an important slide, and actually I have printouts of this slide that people can take with them and pin them on their wall. These are new modality drugs. You can take a picture, but seriously, just take the damn printout. It's better, I promise you. And I did this a couple of years ago, and I've been updating it since then. These are new modality drugs that have made it to market. And there's a few things. So for example, if a drug made it to market and got withdrawn, it's not on here and so on. But what you see is this acceleration. You see 2 or 3 things with this. Does this pointer work? Oh yeah, it does. Okay. So you can see this acceleration. Look how many bispecifics have come to market. This is not ones that might come to market. These are the ones that have come to market, okay? You see CAR Ts coming on, RNAi, other antibody conjugates, other T cells, gene editing. I think we all know this is just the beginning, right? And what all of this is is what I'm talking about, the harmony of that innovation, making it all the way, which happens through deals, investment, and collaboration. And one of the things that is, there's a couple of things you can break this apart. Quite often when a new modality comes out, there's a couple at the beginning, and then there's this big lag while researchers in industry and in academia figure out the problems, and they fix the problems, and they create, let's say, better linkers, or they come up with new payloads for ADCs and so on. And then it starts to accelerate. You have new players coming in, and we all know that ADCs are exploding. So the same happened with bispecifics. You know, antisense has been a little bit more regular, but these things happen, and you know, I want you all to sort of know that when you take a meta view of it, you really see this, this explosion of innovation coming to patients. All of these, it's not just the commercial opportunity, these are coming to patients, and in many cases, there are orthogonal benefits. So we looked at why, in 2016, I think it was, we looked at why were gene therapies taking off now after so long. And when we looked at it, we realized that vector, or talked to people, experts like yourselves, we realized that the vector technologies that were fueling CAR-Ts were now being used in gene therapies and enabling new things. And so keeping an eye on what's going on outside of your independent field is essential, because this is the orthogonal benefits are the ones that will drive your research forward. Okay, some trends across our analyses, just very quickly. This isn't specifically, some of this will come out today, but we do a lot of analyses of a lot of things. Okay, oncology is really hot still. It's not quite as hot as it was, a little bit down, but still hot, okay? If you're in oncology, you're happy. If you're not in oncology, you're happy, okay? Neuro is really on the upswing, right? I actually am, my PhD was in dopamine receptors. For more than 2 decades, I've seen neuro is just about to take off. Really, it's just about to take off. Now it's for real. Immunity and inflammation, this is the area. This is the thing right now. This is what's, you remember I was saying this, you can come back to me and tell me if we got it right. This is where it's at right now. Modalities, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or even a rocket biochemist to tell you that ADCs are taking off. We have another printout that I'm not showing you today of the ways in which different parts of ADCs are just innovating in new ways. AAV engineering is a big deal. And I think one of the things that I want to talk about or just mention is a lot of the platforms are what I would call 2.0 versions. So improving on gene therapies, improving on CAR-Ts, improving on Tregs, rather than necessarily coming up with new cell species or new types of RNA or whatever. It's happening, but when I say most of the attention, most of the money and deals are going into improving this panoply of modalities that we have right now. And then themes, AI and machine learning, I just talked about unbiased. There's a lot of eye rolling about AI, or a lot of that is well-deserved. There's a lot of hype, it's here to stay, right? And figure out what is real and what is hype, but don't ignore it. And precision medicine, this is not just an oncology play anymore. Precision medicine is going well beyond oncology, and I think really going to be the hallmark of the next era. Okay, the next slide, I can make my slides available. I'm not gonna walk through this slide, just to tell you, we use these terms. We hope you know what they mean. If not, they're in here, but I can explain them. Platform companies, asset-centric companies, traditional modalities, new modalities. So I'll go through those. Some top-line trends. Okay, I won't dwell on this because there's not a lot we can do about it, okay? It has been inescapably rough as a startup environment. You can say that Asia and Europe in particular have taken a little bit less of a hit, but you can also say that we are not out of the woods. This is 2024 first half. You know, this is still a tough environment. That's a reality. You can keep toiling, keep working. There's no particular recipe that I've got, except to tell you the bar has gotten higher. Every investor you speak to will say the bar has gotten higher. And that comes back to what I mean about validation. You can't, you're no more selling a dream. People want data, 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 data. And so, you know, I think that That is something that may sound obvious, but 4 or 5 years ago, you could go in with a different level of data and get a $100 million Series A, not today. I wanted to put some numbers behind this. This is an analysis that we did. So this one was Series A companies. Sorry, I should have mentioned this. This is globally, this is from my friend Danielle, my colleague Danielle's work. Series A raises like throughout, like globally in all the regions. This was a Europe-based analysis we did, but I've done it in other areas, and the numbers are pretty much the same, if not a little bit more. Overall, when you look at the roots of companies that are, these are what we call the top companies, so they'd raised more than $50 million, euros actually, no, dollars, or had a pharma deal, and you go to the core of their technology, 60% of them are based in academic technology. That number ranges from 60 to 75, depending on what particular cohort you're looking at. In platform companies are companies that you create a platform that has an ongoing line of potential therapeutic candidates. So you might be an siRNA company or an mRNA company. Moderna, for example, is a platform company. An asset company will be one that might in-license assets. So the assets just create a pipeline. It might be a single asset company, but you don't have an underlying technology. There are different business models behind those. And in both cases, actually, the core assets, in this case, the lead ones, they come from academia. The one place in this cohort that they don't is in service companies, most of which are AI, machine learning plays, or things like AV engineering plays. And when they don't come from academia, that means that they come from, they might have spun out of a big pharma, or they might have been some VCs getting together themselves to address an issue. Kathy asked me to talk about where farmers are doing collaborations with academics. And I said, no problem, because we have this amazing database. And then we went to the database, and there's not much in there. And so I wrote to, and I know that there are some pharma people in the room. I know this, so listen to me here. Okay, we wrote to like 15 pharma companies and said, can you tell us about your deals with academia? And Takeda, credit to them, they actually disclose them. That's from our database. But what I've put on here is the most information that I got, okay? So I can't tell you, I can only tell you that there are a ton of deals, and they told us they do a ton of deals and partnerships, but I can't tell you what they are. What I can do is talk about a different thing, which is biotech deals. Biotechs do deals with academics, and you should know about these because I think they're one of the most under-discussed, really, areas of deal making. And so what we did is we looked at biotech, disclosed, I mean, there's probably some that aren't disclosed. So these are disclosed deals between biopharmas and academic groups in 2023. And they fall into sort of 5 categories. Research partnerships are those where you're just exploring biology or technology together. A discovery collaboration is similar, but it's when you're specifically going after products. So, you know, inbuilt to that relationship is new candidate products rather than understanding the biology of IL-13 or whatever. Licensing an asset, that will be when a company that exists specifically licenses an asset from you. You might be, Steve, you might say, you know what, I'm done. I want to have my academic career. You take this asset forward. That's fine with me. I'll get the royalties, whatever deal you do manage to get from them. but these are, and you can see there's a lot of asset licensing, and you know, the relationship that goes on with that varies by deal. There are deals where you create a new company, out of the particular asset, and then there's a handful of sort of manufacturing projects together, and there are some vaccine development ones where where that's sort of funded by some global agency. So I just want to go back to venture for a minute and come back, because I just want you to say, where is venture putting their money, right? Venture, I'm trying to figure out if that's how many minutes I have left. Okay, whoops, right. I'm going to have to speed through some of these. Most money is still going into cancer, but 2 things to notice in that. 7 of these companies are cell therapy companies. 6 of them are focused on solid cell on solid tumors, sorry. That is a big change. Solid tumors are where cell therapies are needed. VCs are putting their money there, okay? I think that's important. Neurology, it's more than half as common as cancer. You would not have seen that a few years ago. Most of it is in neurodegeneration, but neuropsych is really important too, and we call pain neuro. Endocrine, this is lagging indicator, endocrine metabolic, under 10% of the total companies, that's gonna change. Obesity drugs are a massive area, and now everyone wants in, and they wanna make the next one. So that will change. You can hold me to that as well. Biotechs are going to academia for different priorities. So you see that the biotech deals are still mostly in cancer, but what's second and third? Diagnostic and infectious. You wouldn't have thought that. I didn't think that. And so the deal and investment dollars don't always show the same patterns. And when you take these same data and you break it down by those categories, what you see is that the diagnostic and infectious deals are largely around asset licensing. I went in this unbiased, to use your word. I didn't know what I was going to find when I looked at this. But I think it's pretty interesting. And I think that you'll see a lot of discovery collaborations in cancer, autoimmunity and inflammation. New co-creation is there as well. In neurology, crosses the board, right? All kinds of deals in neurology. Want to just point out modalities. So we call traditional modalities our small molecules, monoclonal antibodies, proteins, peptides, things that go back to those very early days of biotech. New modalities are the ones I showed you before. Usually they've sort of, most of them involve some level of engineering if they're antibodies and so on. And what you just see is that there's actually just a fair mix. I couldn't say to you the biotechs all want this. They're working in cell therapies. Small molecules, still very big. So what are the value drivers? What are the technologies and innovations, right, that people are coming for? And so what I did is I went into these deals, all 77 of them, and I broke them down by, you know, what is the value that the biotech is seeing in the academic innovation? And a third of them are new therapies, right? And this, actually more than that, like more than half, are new products, so new therapies, new diagnostics, or new vaccines, right? A large proportion are enabling technologies, and I'm going to go into that in the next couple of slides. And then the balance are technologies that solve problems, right? And I'm going to go into that as well. Very briefly, the therapies and vaccines, they sort of carry on. I just looked at those disease areas, mostly cancer, some infectious, just going back on some themes here. And I wanted just to spend a minute on diagnostics, because I can't tell you how much we hear that there's no money in diagnostics, you can't find deals. It is true anecdotally, and yet the data actually show that there's a fair number of collaborations in diagnostics. And I think it's important, I wanted to point out that these are not just all companion diagnostics for cancer treatments. It's moving to neurology. Here it's moving to infectious. I expect to see it moving in other areas. And the two, why do we pick out AI and machine learning and precision medicine? Almost all of these deals, or most of these deals, have one or the other. Both of those strategies, AI and machine learning or precision oncology, they are all aimed at improving the probability of success. That's what the commonality is, and that's what, if you combine these with a diagnostic, that's what you're aiming to do. That's the game, right? The game is to, how do you make drugs cheaper, blah, blah, blah. The probabilities of success, the odds of success are so low, right? Biology is hard. And so using these different strategies, this is what industry wants. I very much do believe we're going to see this increase. I also believe it will move to an area that is greater probabilities of success. So it may not be that it may still take 13 years, right? But it may just be that your chances are no longer 10% or whatever percent you want, but are much higher because you are doing your trials in a population that is more likely to respond. Okay, what's enabling new therapies mean? What are examples? So in some of them are finding new targets. Some labs are particularly good at finding new targets. When I have a star against it, it means that there's a new one of these companies was a new co-created. Some of them are about finding candidate molecules. Some of them are licensing technologies to make new therapies. So they might be licensing a way of creating radioligand therapies, or they might be licensing gene editing in order to make immune cell therapies. And some of them, as I talked about before, are sort of biology. They want to understand the biology in order to find targets. Or, sorry, this might be biology around a specific target or around a specific immunology in a specific species. That includes like a bat one. There's a very nice bat immunology company. Solving problems, cell therapy manufacturing, big problem. Everybody probably knows that. So there's a lot of labs that are out there. They're doing techniques like ex vivo expansion. They are, finding better ways to manufacture cell and gene therapies. Some of these are designed like enhancement of a CAR for a CAR T cell, talked about delivery. And what is improving treatment? So that's something like using AI. This one is using AI-guided morphology, and they're using that to guide how leukemia treatment would be done. There's data sharing projects. So that's another category that's fueling some of these deals. Percentage-wise, across the group, AI and machine learning is just about 20% of the deals, and precision medicine just over a quarter. In our European cohort, they're a bit higher, they're about 30%. But, there's quite a lot of overlap. So quite often, people are using AI and machine learning for precision medicine, like that's the goal. And then here, I won't spend a long time, mostly because I don't have a long time on this slide, but the idea here is that across these different modalities, there are quite often similar problems. And as I said, if you solve for one, you might solve for the others. So payment is an easy one. There are really big problems with the payment models for these. They're one-and-done therapies, and they haven't really figured out a good way to pay for them. But once they solve it, they could solve it here. Safety, there are certain aspects of the immune response that are similar in gene therapies to some of the other ones. And delivery is the golden one, right? Like delivery. There's not going to be one delivery technology that solves everything, but there will probably be a toolbox of deliveries that once you do that, and we're talking about delivery of nucleic acid therapies, for example, once you unlock that, you really just open a whole new range of targets. Very briefly, this is where the academics are and the companies are. There are another 36 deals with US companies and US academics that may not surprise anybody, but mostly people stay home. 66% of these deals are between companies and academic organizations in the same country. I said I'll make the data available to people if they want to spend some time, looking at that. This one, I just want to point out to you, you usually probably look at these things in terms of targets, but here we're looking at VCs. So the point here is to show you networking is really important. These, we looked at the Series A investments by the VCs. Everybody needs to know who the VCs are, right? That if they want to go and pitch to them, and figuring out who syndicates with whom, who's invested in what area, that's really a way, to break into this. That's a different kind of homework to figuring out what kind of validation you have to do when you go pitch to a VC. So that's the end. Again, a shameless plug again for, I hope we'll see your innovations and put you with VCs and farmers and grand rounds at our conference in Nashville. And happy, if we have any time, to take questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Please wave and bring your hand up. I have one, if I may. Infectious diseases and diagnostics, the deals between academia and biotech, is a surprise. Do you know if they're being funded by government and or soft sources, representing the unmet medical need and societal need, but also the tricky business models in those areas?
So some of them are, some of them that fell into that other category would have, for example, one or two of them might have some big money behind it from a, like a malaria vaccine or something like that. There's a couple of malaria vaccines, but I think that's not the whole picture. I think if you look at it, RSV, for example, this year has seen a lot of industry interest. I don't want to pretend it's easy. I can only present to you the data, but people, I think we would not have seen this pre-COVID. I think it's mostly viral in terms of infectious, and I think that there is a little bit more appetite than there was.
Sure.
I think people want to. Oh, there's a question.
Question over there.
There's one up
Thank
there.
you. I'm up here.
Oh, hi.
It's not such a technical question, so I'm a bit nervous about answering it, but I'll do it anyway. Just like to say hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for a very captivating talk. I'm Angela Richards from Imperial College. I agree with you that neuro should step up more, because that's my area of interest. And I really liked your slides and everything. I agree that you have captured the search strategies of academics and pharma companies in trying to find out what is the next big thing. However, you had 2 slides, and I wondered if maybe something was missing in those slides. And perhaps sometimes when pharma and academics decide on what to look at, that can be impacted by patient lobbies, social media, and also certain groups. So this also speaks to the idea of social justice and how some voices get heard and some voices don't. That's not the bit I want to focus on, but more in your slides, I wondered about, it's not, for me, the slides showed, yes, a clear kind of relationship between academics and pharma companies, but I thought in the middle or somewhere in those slides there will be room for these groups that lobby and they can influence. But I really thought it was a really good talk. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, word of advice, don't apologize for your question. Very nice question. So, okay, so a couple of things. Let me just be clear. The data was not pharma companies, but biotech companies. It's not the same, right? Secondly, you raise an incredibly good point about disease organizations and various non-profit organizations. You're right, I didn't look at those. That wasn't the mission of this, but I can talk about that. There are some that have been incredibly effective. Vertex wouldn't be where it is today. There wouldn't be the cystic fibrosis medications that there are today without the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. They worked very early on with academia. There are other organizations, the ALS community, patient community, is incredibly vocal and powerful. I don't know how much they work with academics. They work with anybody who will work with them. It is a very complicated area. Some patient communities lobby FDA very seriously. There's a lot of controversy around the Duchenne muscular dystrophy drugs that have just been approved. And there's a very strong patient community there. There are many other, there's a whole spectrum of patient communities. I don't personally see that as an issue of social justice. That is, patient communities that started with the HIV community becoming incredibly vocal and important players in this ecosystem. The social justice part, if you wanted to think about that, comes in with things like the FDA now requiring a certain makeup in clinical trials to have more representative populations in clinical trials. That is another whole conversation that I'd be happy to have, but I don't think that is, patient communities, their job and their mission is to represent the patients for, whatever background they might come from. So they're different briefs, but you're right, they are a very important part of the ecosystem.
Thank you. I'm afraid we're going to have to wind up there. Please, thanks once again. Thank you. Thanks very much, Simone. Thank you. That's grand.